should get started here any second now. All right, 10 more off. So I said it in the last commentary that we did, but we're probably, if you've watched the runs previously, we're probably going to get a little bit repetitive with describing the run, as there's people in here who probably don't know what's going on, and it's, you know, there's not much to talk about in the meantime anyways, so just bear with us. We'll go over everything. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to explain. So we start the game out with this opening shoot-'em-up sequence in Prologue. Not a whole bunch of optimization you can do here besides clearing the waves of enemies out quicker. The faster you clear out the wave, the quicker the next one spawns, so that's where you can make your time optimizations here.
Yeah, there's a couple of AI manipulations that can be done. Most of the runners opt to do just the first one. The second one can be a little bit finicky and either can save a second or lose 2 to 3. So it's not exactly the safest strategy.
Personally, I go for the first one, and the second one I haven't tried yet.
Yeah, the second one's a little bit finicky. They're both going to be tanking laser hits here. Very minor optimization. Allows you to get rid of the large and medium recoveries that the game starts you off with. The 15 small recoveries is more than enough to make it through the prologue, so getting rid of the large and medium recoveries will make it so it's easier to menu. 2 less inputs to save a couple frames for when we enter our quick menu in order to buff. Looks like Fullest kinda went for the second one, but pushed the AI a little too high there.
Multiple surrounding enemy air units confirmed. Requesting permission to assume mobile configuration. Permission granted.
So I suppose, well, not much else is happening here in opening prologue sequences. We could talk a little bit about this tournament. We've got 32 players and lots of matches lined up over the next couple of weeks here. One more match after this one for today, if I remember correctly, which should just be mine.
Yes.
Captain, I think.
And then we've got a couple scheduled up for tomorrow as well.
Yes, we'll do, so our round 1 is going to be round robin. Everyone's been separated into our groups, and we'll all play each of the other runners in our group. And then the highest 2 in standings after the round robin will progress to the second phase, where it'll be double elimination.
And a lot of new runners in this tournament particularly. Definitely a lot of people, who, like I said, myself included, who have been running the game for less than a month, just grinding down their PBs for this tournament. Always makes for interesting upsets, because you never quite know what some of them are going to pull out for their times.
Shabu actually has a very slight lead here. Shabu is one of his most commonly run category is actually mackerel percent, which is actually just that first opening shmup sequence, and then we just clip out of bounds, skip all of all the rest of prologue, and just fish until we catch mackerel. He's pretty well optimized in the prologue. the opening shmup.
And again, same thing as the opening shmup. These silos here are just clearing out the waves as fast as you can to get the next one to spawn quicker. And both of them getting into Marks 1 about the same time. Shabu was just a very slight lead.
Is that our target?
Negative. This enemy is unrelated. Proposal. Dispatch it as swiftly as possible.
You don't say.
Laser communications recovered.
2B, I'm transmitting your pod program.
Pod program download complete.
So far, a very, very close race. They're pretty much within a second of each other, but it is the prologue. These two are both very experienced runners, and this is the common reset point in the game, so it's very, very well practiced. Fullest looking like he's got a little bit of nerves, messing up the first crane skip.
I was going to send you
Set
the
him
map
back a
data
little
I
bit.
collected earlier.
Do it.
I'm not even so sure it's nerves, to be honest. I'm pretty sure it's just rust.
Negative. Nearby enemies are jamming our signal.
Nothing's ever easy.
So on this next sequence, the flyers that come in, you're going to want to try and line them up in a line as much as you can, so you can get off one laser and take out as many as you can. It'll save you a lot of time in this room instead of shooting them all down one by one. Suppose while we're going through here, it's probably a good time to explain damage glitching and just sort of the optimal combat that we would use in these runs. I'll do that after bridge skip though. The skip both of them are up on now is pretty difficult high jump when it comes down to like technically executing it. Both of them hit it pretty flawlessly though.
Yeah, there's a lot of timing involved with it. The initial gain of height was from a lift, which is a jump plus a heavy. You can delay the heavy input to gain a little additional height, which is actually required for bridge skip. But you can kind of adjust based on how much height you see from your lift for your timings on the extra inputs after that. So you can actually make the jump with a kind of small lift. It's one of the toughest high jumps that's in the actual run.
You're going to see here both of them, again, trying to use the pod program laser to line up as many consecutive kills as they can, just to reduce the clear time. Fullest coming out with an ever slight lead, and looks like he's going for the angle swag skip. And he gets it. Doesn't actually save that much time. Optimally, I think it saves maybe 1 second at most. So it's pretty much just for swag.
There should be another facility across that bridge. It's a bit of a hike, but should we check it out? It's not like command.
Oh yeah, I was going to explain damage glitching. So
right.
Damage glitching. When you use a heavy in this game, you throw out the sword and it sort of spins and does a couple hits. But it was found that if you are dashing or running while you do that, it makes the damage increase by roughly 5 times. So a lot of the time you'll see we're just going to be spinning that sword out, and a little bit later in the run when we get the short sword in our second weapon set on the heavy slot, we can actually double damage glitch and have 2 swords out spinning at the same time. Another part of combat to reduce down times is you can taunt the enemies by spamming your flashlight. Puts them into a frenzied state where they'll take 50% more damage and do 50% more damage. I think, at least.
I actually
something
don't
close
even
to
know
that.
the percentage.
I don't know
yeah.
the exact percentages, but it's a buff where they're gonna hit harder, but they're gonna take more damage. So ups the risk, but ups the speed.
I believe it's just double damage, and then you receive double. I could be wrong, but I haven't really crunched the math. One of the differing parts for the combat in prologue versus every other part of the run for us is the heavy sword. The rest of the run, it's not worth it to use a heavy sword, purely because we would have to go out of our way to pick up one. After the prologue, it will take your heavy sword away from you, which you can pick it back up, but it just would lose a lot of time to do that. It's basically left at the outside of the factory, which is where prologue is, where prologue takes place. And
Now Angles. Yeah, look what he gets. Oh.
Yeah, after that cutscene, Angles can choose any number of attacks there. He gets one attack before transitioning. Oh, they both got it. Any number, like one of, I think it's like 6 different attacks. Those multiple punches, which both Shabu Shabu and Fullest got, they take an extra 23 seconds over the optimal attack choice. Any of the ranged attacks are the optimal choice. If Angles decides to slap his hands together in the middle, then you lose about 3 seconds. Very minor on that one, but punches is a very common reset point.
So this section of Angles is completely timed. It will just run the same amount of times, and I don't even think you need to damage Angles here, so a lot of players will just opt to go and sit on one of the side pipes, just because Angles hits straight down the middle. He doesn't actually target you here. So you just get a nice little handbrake right in the beginning of the game. And so we're going to see Fullest coming up on a vertical height tech on these stairs here. It's called a double lift. So if you're running up a slanted surface, you can actually sort of clip your feet back into the ground and reset your first jump, allowing you to do 2 lifts and gain a lot of extra height. You use that extra height just to skip walking around all of Angles there. It's used in only a couple other skips in the run.
So Shabu had a pretty clean fight there.
So now at this point on Angles, again, it's just back to being timed. You just want to get damage off here and pretty much don't die. You just end up waiting until Angles eventually smacks you away. But yeah, not much to be improved for time at this section of the run, so Fullest will maintain just an ever so slight lead over Shabu.
It talks? I didn't know the machine
There is a bit of attack RNG here that comes into play as well. The dialogue that's playing, it has to get to a certain point in the dialogue in order to progress to the next phase, at which point the next attack that Angles uses will be a punch. If he's already in the animation of another attack, then you have to wait for that entire animation to play before you get pushed back, which is the scripted part there.
Enemy unit. Marking weak
Also,
point.
apologies, I forgot to switch audio again.
I was about to do it. Oh, an interesting Shabu opting to buff before hitting angles here.
Very interesting.
Guess he just really wants the 2-hit. I don't know if it's worth the time in doing it, but
Yeah, the buffs are a little bit slower since opening the quick menu takes a little bit of time, or opening, yeah, the quick menu, because there's a little bit of the game will pause while you open it, of course, and then there's a little bit of a delay after closing the menu as well. So I believe it's about a 3 to 4 second time loss. Fullest is entering the true boss of the early segment of the game, the menu percent.
oh my goodness. Actually dislike the menus very hard in this game.
Morning.
The amount of times I'll just be mashing dialogue and decline a quest or something stupid like that. Or just sit here and try and set yourself destruct 3 times.
Yeah, so Fullest should probably be going for, I believe he goes for the dialogue skip here every time. This is another one. Oh, he didn't. Interesting. There is a trigger line there, and you can interact with 9S, open his AI settings, and walk past the trigger to skip that dialogue. It saves a couple seconds. Oh, Shabu went for it, got a little greedy.
Usually we can't get near flight units.
I think it's going to be interesting to see these runs because Shabu said he's going to be pulling out all the tricks this run. And I'm not too sure about Fullest, but he might try to play it a little bit safer. But we'll have to see. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah, Shabu's also coming off a pretty sizable PB last run, so it'll be interesting to see how he plays 2 runs in a row.
If all they want is intel, we scanner models are built for that kind of thing.
Orders are orders.
All right.
See if Fullest goes for the flick strat.
2B, you're going to have some new weaponry installed from here.
I feel like he's going to, just to make me do the thing again.
Make sure to commit them to memory.
Nope. I know Shabu will, though.
Ooh, he got the spin on the fidget spinner.
Yeah, the spin loses a bit of time because the spinning, the blades on the end will block your projectiles. In which case, you're doing less damage, so they take a little longer to kill when they decide to spin like that. Ooh, Shabu got the same RNG.
So now we're just into the city ruins section of the game on Fullest screen, and it's just a bunch of solid movement and item pickup here. Not really anything in the way of combat.
Target location acquired. Marking on map. Proposal. Proceed to
So you'll see he did a big plunge off the building. Plunging just happens when you evade midair and use a heavy attack, and it'll just cause you to shoot downwards in a diagonal line. And at the bottom of it, you can also buffer out and evade to cancel the landing lag of it. So good movement option if you're coming down from a very high point, but and again, now we're back into the menuing. Resistance camp is just exactly what it sounds like, a bunch of menuing.
Yep. Fullest opted to pick up the item in that chest. There's a little bit of a wait while you're doing that dialogue, or while 9S is talking to you before you can interact with NPCs. Picking up that chest drop is pretty much just a free recovery. The prologue will actually take all of your items at the end of it, so except for your short sword. You'll lose all of your recoveries you had left, you'll lose any item drops you picked up, and you also lose the heavy sword. So picking up that recovery is a good kind of safety strat, since we don't buy until we get to the desert area.
Not really. I just figured it might feel nice to have some good
It was kind of just doing some fetch quests. They're required in order to progress the run. And also, this is probably a good time to explain the slow-mo, since Fullest was just doing that. Holding down your pod program will slow down everything in the game except for yourself. It can be canceled with a pod fire or a well-timed dash. And in that way, we can kind of cycle slow-mos in order to slow down enemies, make things easier so they're not avoiding you, or not attacking you, rather. You can use it for slowing down bosses, so you can do more efficient damage. There's a lot of uses for it. Not a required element, but it is very helpful.
So Fullest actually losing a little bit of time on the drop pickup quest because one of his drops went in a bush and he couldn't quite find it. So unfortunate little bit of time lost, but still holding his lead. And so here, after completing the quest from the weapon supply trader, as you see Fullest just did, we upgrade our short sword to level 2. Essentially gives it's more attack speed, correct? If I remember correctly.
It gives it more attack speed. It also gives it a higher damage value. Each level up of any of the virtuous line of weapons, so the spear, the light sword, or the heavy sword, they'll all gain an attack speed bonus for each level you give it, which that attack speed will affect your movement, your combat. It affects some of the skips that you'll have to do. It can really change a lot of things in the run. Fortunately, the run is typically only level 2 sword. It is possible to get level 3 in a run. It's completely dependent on drops of severed cables and dented plates. The other items required for that level up are provided by the quests or picking up the chest in the Adam and Eve fight.
And it's definitely something that you have to practice for in a run too. If you decide to upgrade to Virtuous Contract 3, it changes a lot of the skips towards the end of the game. Specifically, Mansplaining and Copied City Clip both get different lineups and become significantly harder to do.
Fullest just did, and Shabu is coming up on. This was going to be the first shopping point in the run. We'll pick up some items to make us to about the halfway point. Pick up a sachet, which makes it so the animals will not run away from you on sight. You pick up one animal bait, which will be used for a little bit quicker movement later on. Some number of attack ups for both ranged and melee, and then recoveries to make it to the halfway point. So basically until A2. The transporter was picked up to be used after the desert segment. That'll kind of get explained when we get there.
But as you can see, to anybody who hasn't seen the runs earlier today or seen a Nier run in general, walls are merely a suggestion in this game. There's a lot of things that we do to kind of thrust ourselves forward into out-of-bounds clips. And those are being found very useful for saving a lot of time. You'll see, especially coming up here, when we get to the desert housing skips, it saves a bunch of time by running past the desert and skipping all these cutscenes.
Careful. We've got enemies approaching.
This game is very odd with the out of bounds. You can out of bounds in basically anywhere with a corner. The out of bounds can be kind of weird. The movement does take some getting used to. Sometimes there will be a visual floor, but there's no floor there, and sometimes there's no visible floor, but there is a floor there. It takes a little adjusting to. And Shabu's coming up here on the pod C, which isn't so much used as a pod for damage as it is for a second pod program. There are multiple spots that it can be used for. It's used in a couple of the boss fights, and it's also just kind of nice to have as a safety net, as a second pod you can use for slow-mo if you accidentally fire off the program.
Large numbers of humans resided in such concrete and metal shelters. The structures were referred to.
So on Fullest screen, you'll see him coming up on these desert housing skips. It's a multi-part series of skips, but normally the route would run a little bit to his left and through the desert and all these apartments. You end up chasing this robot. You get quite a few cutscenes doing it. Instead, we clip into the apartment and then travel in a no-clip area out of bounds towards Atom Pit, which you can see now appearing on Fullest screen. And he's going to go over to a tunnel that normally leads to Atom Pit and go just outside it and hit a trigger to spawn enemies in at the bottom.
Shabu's going for the backup there again. Yeah,
So
a
now
lot of
you'll
the triggers will extend way above or below the actual ground. So Shabu kind of was able to showcase that. You're able to trigger that cutscene from way underground where you shouldn't be.
So now in Atom Pit, you essentially just want to try and kill as many stubbies as possible here. You're going to try and get 2 levels out of it, as well as a bunch of plug-in chip drops. It'll be important for later that you get a good grind out here so that you can do a clip later in the run and not worry about not making it to level 20. It's not a huge time loss if you don't make level 20, but it's always nice to have.
Yeah, level 20 versus level 19 is about a 5% damage increase. It's not a huge damage increase, but it does help. One of the newer strats, which I will be interested to see if either of these runners go for it, it makes it very consistent to hit level 20. It looks like Shabu missed the trigger here, so fortunately there is a recovery. You can recover from it. Did he miss the... I'm trying to see if he missed... Yeah, he missed the tunnel trigger. Oof. That's a tough recovery.
That feels sort of bad because I jokingly said to him, please
Oh,
soft
no.
lock this run so that I don't
no.
soft lock my run. He's like, I'll do it for you. And here he is.
Yeah, so there's a couple trigger... Oh, it looks like you got it. Yeah, there we go. Or wait, no, never mind.
This can be quite the recovery to try and get this trigger if you end up missing it and landing in Atom Pit.
Yeah, there it is. There we go. Good. Yeah, if you miss the trigger and clip into Atom Pit. You have to go all the way back up to get it. It's a good ways back. It also doesn't spawn the platform that you typically need to land on. So you have to make that very long jump that Shabu did a little earlier in order to get back up, to go back, hit the trigger, and then the platform will load.
So very unfortunate early setback. This will probably set him back
What the hell just happened?
2 minutes, I want to say.
I've never seen a machine
Probably, yeah, probably about 2 minutes. I mean, it varies depending on recovery time, but yeah, about 2 minutes is pretty safe for that.
So we'll see Fullest coming up now on the save scum skip. So when he grabbed the transporter earlier, it's going to allow him to, when he no-clips into this wall, he'll be able to get within range of the transporter and save his game. That way he misses the dialogue and a lot of the running time to where the transporter would be. And since we're running in loadless time, this can be quite a significant time save.
One of the most important options there. Don't return to resistance camp. If you accidentally select resistance camp, there's two options. You can either go back to the resistance camp like you're supposed to, or perform a relatively tough out of bounds involving a moose in order to bypass the barrier on the way to amusement park.
Yeah, it is definitely a very feels bad when you do hit it in a race, because yeah, you either do that clip or you end up setting yourself back 2 or 3 minutes.
Target location confirmed. I'm worried about the other androids. We should probably check this out as soon as possible. Looks like our surface route's been cut off. Maybe we can get through from underground.
Oh, that ladder.
Fortunately, Fullest missing the plunge, which would make it pretty smooth to get down that ladder. Ladders in this game are quite a nuisance to deal with.
There's no point trying to work out unsolvable problems.
I suppose.
The top of the ladders have 2B does kind of like a flip animation, so as many ladders as we can, we kind of try and skip that flip animation. Typically gain the rest of the height needed from a high jump tech or something along those lines. Or just skip the ladder completely. I will be very interested to see if Fullest is going for the roller coaster here. There is a way to skip the roller coaster ride, which opens a lot of possibilities. You can pick up the spear, you can gain about 4 times the amount of experience as you would on the roller coaster. There's a couple different paths you can take. And it looks like he's going with the safe strat here. Just do the normal Let's Play skip.
Yeah, the auto scroller coaster is a pretty relatively new skip. I want to say within the last 2 weeks. Sounds about right. Maybe less.
Like the optimizations for it probably about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks old.
So it's always a treat to see runners in these races throwing it in there. We've seen Questica threw it in successfully in his run earlier this morning, and then I think it was Mytherium and no, maybe I'm wrong. Tech. Was it Mytherium and Tech?
Yeah, Mytherium and Tech both went for it, but neither were successful.
So what do you think? I mean, if you want to call me Nines, it's totally okay.
I'm good.
Oh. Alright.
Oh no. Shabu accidentally deciding to try and dash swing there. Dash swing there is a little bit weird. The game has a built-in auto lock-on feature, so if there are any mobs that are really close or on your camera screen, the game will typically auto lock you. Any attacks you would do would auto lock to that enemy.
Alert. Multiple
Shabu having quite a few issues getting this desert save scum, finally getting it after 3 attempts. Now Fullest starting on the Beauvoir fight. Pretty simple fight. You're just gonna try and double damage glitch her as she's coming out of this platform, and then as she starts up her spinning move, you're gonna want to position yourself close to the stage so that she comes back towards you, thus saving the amount of time that she's going to take to travel back to the stage.
I went a little bit too quick on that damage. If you get her to her HP threshold for that phase too fast, she'll actually just pick a random attack, whereas normally the first attack of that phase is scripted to be an attack where she kind of puts blades out underneath her. The blades attack is one of the fastest, if not the fastest attack she has, so we typically like to keep that. Damaging too quickly can cost a lot of time, especially if she decides to do, like, say, the rotating lasers attack.
So this section is just pretty simple. You go around striking down these crucifixes with androids on them, and the rings that they shoot out, as well as the waves across the floor, will put you into a hacking state, so you'll lose a little bit of time. Ideally, you want to avoid it and just clear everything through with punches and pod fire. And then you'll come back to Beauvoir, hit her threshold, maybe clear out a couple extra things like Fullest is doing, come back and then take her down to her final health threshold, where you'll self-destruct to leave yourself in low HP. And that's important for the next section of the game that's coming up.
attack triggered by enemy consciousness data.
I don't believe Shabu's put any time into roller coasters, so I would be very surprised to see if he went for it, or to see him going for it. Probably the safer strat.
Unfortunately, getting a really weird clip out on the Let's Play skip. So you'll see Fullest here now running to Pascal's village. What ends up happening in this portion of the game is it's just a couple of pickup quests where you'll go to Pascal, he'll give you an item, then you run back to the resistance camp, give that item to Anemone, and then she'll give you an item back to bring back to Pascal. And the most efficient way to do this is to self-destruct after Beauvoir to leave yourself in low HP. Then you go to Pascal's village, pick the item up, run back towards the resistance camp, and then you put down an animal bait that you bought earlier to bait an animal, ride it to resistance camp, pick up the item from Anemone, and then get the animal that you rode over on to kill you so that you death warp back to Pascal's village.
Hard to tell what an alien is thinking, you know?
Fullest had some pretty clean movement on the way there. Those platforms can be a little weird, trying to dash swing over them. If you are not on ground when you put the heavy input, you'll actually do a downward heavy attack. It's not great. It's a slow attack.
Just realized how many times I said Anemone. Apologies. Anemone. Holy moly. It's a long day.
And Fullest did use the correct recovery. Using the medium recovery makes the death warp take 2 hits instead of 1. It's good. It is very easy to mess up that. Looks like Fullest is trying to go out of his way to find a bar with no success.
2B here. What's wrong?
Oh. There's this operator I kind of liked, but when I asked her out,
It was found that only with the boar,
I am definitely not the
if
person to
you
discuss this with.
get the boar into a running animation and then just keep jumping over and over, it is slightly faster than just running on it normally.
It would affect mission efficiency.
Unfortunately, the same strategy does not work with the moose, as the moose cannot jump too well. The moose can jump better. The moose jumps so high that it actually loses time. And Fullest used that door to trigger a dialogue that will interrupt the call with Operator 60, basically replacing a longer dialogue with a shorter dialogue.
Your mouth can
Ooh. Shabu having a little bit of extra hack sequences here in BF4.
What's that noise?
2B, this is an emergency transmission from the bunker. We're reading a Goliath-class enemy inside the city ruins. And it looks like there are a ton of other machines there with it. All your high
And Fullest is moving towards the City Angles fight. There are two of them. Only one of them is required.
I promise you.
We have a way around the first one. A lot of this section of the game is very movement based. A lot of the time save in this section is purely from taking correct V lines, timing your dash swings, which are slightly faster than just dash chaining. And Shabu is leaving BF4. Got the self-destruct off, and he is prepping for the death warp.
The flight units should be on the roof of that building up ahead. It'll be dangerous, but we're not going anywhere unless we pass through that Goliath's legs. We should be careful.
Okay, I am back. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
Did you explain angle skip?
I have not explained the skip yet, no.
Well, let's do that then, I guess. So coming up here is city angles, and it's normally you're supposed to stay on the rooftop and fight the angle that's in front of you. It was found though that the pile of rocks that normally clears after you kill the first angle. Oh no!
Oh, Shabu had a crash. Yeah. Fortunately, I believe he had saved for the death warp. I believe he had.
This is just an unfortunate run for Shabu.
Shabu's been having some PC issues lately.
Anyways, back to explaining the angles. So you can see Fullest already did it. I don't think he got the first skip, but he got the backup. And so there's an invisible wall on the pile of rocks, and when you go up to it, you can essentially just double jump and dash through. If you hit the right angle, you'll get above the wall, and you can just ignore that angles completely. Then you can come up and do what Fullest has just done. If he's lasering, you can position yourself right in between his shoulder and his neck, and both of your pod programs will two-hit kill him, making for a very quick clear.
It looks like Shabu had not gotten the save off yet. So unfortunately, he's going to be back before amusement park. It's a pretty big time loss.
Yorha, this is your commander. For the first time in centuries, we've
very unfortunate set of circumstances for Shabu. Not going to, I don't want to put him out yet, but after two really bad time losses like that, unless Fullest manages to hit a very, very bad soft block later in the game, there's not going to be much of a chance to make the time back.
You're not much for plans, are you, 2B? machines. Seems like they've been here for a long time.
What is this place?
I don't know. There's nothing like it in the database.
Alan and Steve.
You.
To be. Look out. My name
So
is
this
Alan.
fight here,
The aliens
that Fullest is entering,
They were wiped out
it's
by
a
us.
timed fight. You kind of just have to wait through all of the dialogue sequences here.
The androids next.
There are a little bit of things that you will see soon. We have enough damage output that we can get. We can actually completely get rid of the health bar once, possibly multiple times, but only the first time you negate the health bar will it grant an actual level up. So we typically will get that extra level up and then try and get a well-timed attack and a dodge here. There we go. Use a counter attack and then our normal high jump tech, and you can actually clip over that wall in order to save a little bit of time on the way out by clearing the mobs in the caves. There's also a couple other things you can do. You can pick up the items in the chest over here that Fullest is going to do. That chest is always scripted to be 3 titanium alloys. What those are good for is the chance to get our Virtuous Contract sword to level 3. Virtuous Contract level 3 is about a 55% damage increase and an attack speed increase as well. It saves a large chunk of time over the course of the run in exchange for a decent amount of inconsistency on a couple of the later skips.
Yeah, for anybody watching around, we saw Shabu try and go for the VC3 copied city skip to no success. And so he ended up just having to go around the normal route after not getting the setup about 10 times. It can definitely make it pretty rough on those skips, but if you have those lineups down properly, it can definitely pay off in the time.
So
now Fullest, almost 2 sections ahead in the game now.
Probably would have been 1. Just Shabu lost 1 full section. Had to redo it. It's unfortunate. It's part of the issues with the PC port. The game's great. Doesn't run so well on PC. Fortunately, there's the Fix Automata Resolution mod, which is very helpful and is actually the main reason that a lot of our runners can even run the game. It doesn't fix all issues though. There are still some issues with it. The game can still stutter out and just crash. It's really unfortunate when that happens.
Nothing feels worse than having a run where you be on PB and because of something that's out of your control, the game will crash out and shut your run down completely. Even more so when that specific game closing isn't due to a crash, but your pet cat.
Now, Fullest is entering the second and final shopping point in the run. Here he's going to be selling off his small attack buffs, the machine cores that drop from the boss fights, and a handful of the OS chips that do, or system chips rather, the unneeded ones, and picking up large attack buffs and the rest of the recoveries needed to finish the run. I didn't notice, but I know it's Fullest, so he didn't get defense buffs. Defense buffs are completely optional. The time save versus time loss is basically negligible. Defense buffs are more of a consistency or safety kind of buy. A lot of our newer runners will use them. I actually use them myself. Probably the only one in the top 10 who does.
Yeah, likewise, I use buffs as well. I find that the amount of time I'd save for not picking them up is counteracted by the fact that I won't play as risky.
Yeah.
Because it's just that nice extra assurance of having that defense buff and knowing you're not going to get two-shot.
He did buy defense buffs. Well, color me surprised. Yeah, I like the consistency that they offer. They make it so you can kind of just face tank everything and just get right in everything's face. Unfortunately, Fullest did not get any attack chips. That's very unfortunate. Atom Pit is pretty much the only spot you can get them before the point where we equip chips. There are a couple other spots like the roller coaster you can get a really lucky critical drop. Or after before you can get a attack up chip if you so choose to check the drops.
Now again, this section of the game that Fullest is running through is the forest section and castle, although we pretty much skip castle entirely. It's just a lot of solid movement, good pathing, getting a good beeline, and then hitting a couple of the skips that are coming up here successfully.
This is probably the most dense section of the game for skips. Oh no.
Managed to save it though, at least.
Yes. Yeah, there are some pretty major skips in this section. Some of them saving up to 30, 45, even almost a minute of time, so it's a very, very dense section.
The issue with the castle section is it is a 3-story building, and frequently they'll make you run back and forth sort of in a vertical labyrinth through that section, and it takes a lot of time to clear it all. You'll see Fullest lining up for the Rainbow Road skip. It's an alternative to the Mario Kart skip, and usually a lot of the top tier runners will opt for that option since it's a lot of difficult inputs, but it does save about 5 seconds over Mario Kart. So we'll see him, he's now out of bounds behind the castle, and this is what I was talking about by there being 3 floors. So instead of actually going into the castle and working our way through it, we just come out of bounds and go up the windows all the way to the 3rd floor, and then once again up to a set of stairs. That gets us right onto the 4th floor where A2's chamber is. We come back, hit a trigger there, and then start over to A2 room.
Very conveniently placed stairs.
You'll see him, he just did a pod launch on the way over, because normally you have to walk a pretty far distance up to that cutscene. That way you at least land yourself in front of it and you skip the walking, saves probably 4 or 5 seconds.
Annihilation? But why?
Let's go, 9S.
To be?
Now A2 can be one of these harder bosses for newer runners just because the amount of attacks she throws out, she doesn't really care too much, and she can dash away like you see now and just sort of kill time for you. Fullest doing a good job of catching her with a damage glitch as she comes down. And then typically in this cutscene you see A2 jump out the window and you're supposed to chase her. There's a trigger at the back of this room that'll send you back that way, but as you see, Fullest just taking a high jump over the invisible trigger and making his way back towards the transporter to English is hard. Making a transport back towards Pascal's village, thus skipping a pretty lengthy dialogue. See Shabu now coming up on city angles. Definitely very far behind now. Almost past, I'd say almost past the point of recovery.
Yeah, the only thing that I think that would make it possible for a win to come out of it would be if Fullest soft locked factory and take no safety saves.
Yeah.
Because that would cost him about, let's see, how much time? So that would cost 14 minutes in Groon. It'd cost close to a half hour.
9S, why did you ask Pascal about A2?
Huh?
It's not recommended to interface with machines without consulting command.
Thanks, 2B.
Still, machines...
So you'll see Fullest just went into the corner to skip a little bit of dialogue there to get a little bit of a shorter dialogue, and he's going to go through and no-clip out behind the resistance camp. And then he's going to do a couple of plunges here to hit the triggers for Flooded City, and then to get down there into a drown zone, do a double plunge, glide, jump into the cutscene, and it'll void out, spawn back up the top, and do it all again back towards where he needs to go in Flooded City.
Let's take him out already so I can be home in time for dinner.
Yeah, the out of bounds there. There's actually probably a good 4 different ways to clip out of the resistance camp there. Anyone who happened to watch like Half Coordinated's run for SGDQ, what was that, 2 years or last year, I guess at this point. Yeah, don't bother. I mean, even if they patch that one that we use, we have plenty of other ways to get out of bounds.
So there's a small dialogue trigger or dialogue skip you can do there by leaving the zone and then going back to the flight unit that comes in. Saves a little bit of time for the flight unit landing.
And normally there's a like a kind of mortar or whatever, I don't even remember what that's called, but or what the actual name by the game's naming is called, but we just call it mortar. There's like a mortar text there on that building that Fullest jumped on, but when you skip that building, that dialogue trigger is still intact. So being able to jump over to that building and trigger that dialogue overwrites the call with the commander, which allows us to instantly transition to the cutscene.
So here we're into the notorious
sleep accommodation.
Sleeping accommodation, yeah. A 10-12 minute shoot 'em up known as Groon. Again, like the opening prologue, there's not a bunch you can do to save time besides just clearing the waves efficiently and clearing the cores in a 1 cycle.
There's a pretty sizable bounty on it, someone who finds a skip for this. Pretty sizable.
The entire community would appreciate you if you could find a skip.
Please. We're all getting sick and tired of 14-minute auto-scrollers in our speedruns.
up a large-scale enemy inbound. Looks to be 2.8 clicks southwest of us.
Yeah, normally I would try and do more commentary in this spot, but it's so long you just run out of things to say. So for the most of this, I think we'll just let it play out. The only real optimizations are on, I guess, here and on the cores. So here you can use both your pod programs buffed, and it should take 2 cycles of each of them to kill this Goliath flyer here. Besides that, you're just going to spam pod fire at it and heavy attacks. And then once that's down, then it's back to auto-scrolling.
Or despawned enemies. That would make it interesting.
That would be interesting.
Wait, I'm still picking up a large enemy presence.
Didn't I kill that
I
already?
believe Fullest is gonna do it. Do it for me.
That big, we should be able to see it.
Is that a machine?
It's freaking huge.
This fight was actually a pretty fun fight for me casually. Once you get to the point that you've done, I don't even remember how many runs now.
Crap. It's blocking close
It kind of gets old.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun casually though.
So what we ended up saying in the chat last run is people were talking about how this is a fun section, and I agree, it is fun on your first playthrough, but when you start speedrunning it, having a 14-minute unskippable auto scroller that you can't really do anything about, just kind of, it gets a little bit tedious after running the game through so many times. Fortunately, Shabu missing the dialogue skip in bunker.
Enemy data obtained from command.
Go ahead.
The only known record of this machine life form is a lone sighting 320 years ago. Upon reaching land, the unit unleashed a devastating electromagnetic wave attack. All resistance fighters in the vicinity were annihilated.
So basically, if this thing reaches land, we're screwed.
Affirmative.
Shabu is the swaggiest runner. Unfortunately, the game crashed though.
And then he also soft locked an Atom Pit.
Oh, quote unquote. Soft
Yeah.
Yeah, being a speed run, the amount of saves we take is a big, healthy 1, unless you take safety saves. So any kind of game issues can be really costly.
Electromagnetic interference eliminated. Preparing for satellite laser strike.
Oh, come on! It's got an electromagnetic barrier.
Suppose
over
while we're
its
still
whole
doing
body?
Grun, I'm gonna just check the tournament schedule lineup, see what the matches are coming up for tomorrow. Just for anyone interested.
Hunter Squadron deploying out of North 12th C Defense HQ. I'm the commanding officer, Floor B. Don't worry, we'll
Let's
take
see.
it from
So one more run today after this, which is me versus Icefire. That'll be on Speed Gaming 1. And then tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, we've got Dado versus Henny. That should be an interesting matchup. And then Archmage versus Fullest. It's not quite as many games as today. I think there was 5 or 6 races lined up for today, so only 2 tomorrow.
vein.
This thing's armor is too thick. We need more firepower.
2B, let's try for a more direct approach.
Direct? Oh, right.
That's right. Lay down some fire in its stupid mouth.
That enormous machine is an ancient weapon. It was designed to help annihilate the androids, but it wound up going out of control. I was part of the machine's network when it happened, so I remember it. The moment it reached land, it went berserk and began attacking everything in sight. No one could figure out how to stop it. They eventually marooned it deep in the ocean, but it
We're
seems
probably
to be searching for
about
a way back.
halfway through Garoon at this point.
Just about.
It's pretty, yeah, it's tedious.
Commentary
No.
pit hole.
Yep. Just more of the same. But at least 9S is gone now, so, I mean... 9S has great ideas, and they always work.
No! He has a plan. Just hold on.
Has a plan. Oh.
I'm going to see if we can use those
Oh.
missiles back on the shore. But I need you to destroy the EMP unit on that thing's back.
This run is just a basket of troubles for Shabu.
Yeah, it's not going too well on this one.
He's gonna be almost a full grun behind. No, he will be a full grun behind.
He did manage a PB last run. So, I mean, he did get something out of this.
Yeah.
And I know at least for myself personally, typically if I do two runs in a row, my first run is significantly better than my second. So, I kind of understand the feeling.
That's what I was a little bit worried about with, because I was gonna schedule a lot of matches for today, but then I kind of, went against it. My judgment said, I'll probably end up exhausting myself after one run and not doing the next one very optimally.
Yeah.
Burnout's always something you do have to worry about.
Having to deal with multiple goons in the same day.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm hoping at least in this race that I'm coming up and doing, I'm hoping to PB and get my sub-hour 40. It'd be a nice milestone to do in a race.
Yeah, I've actually never PB'd in a race, not once.
Really?
Yep, it's a feeling that I probably will never know at this point. Is that core 2 or 3? Oh, that's 3. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
It's over.
It's over. We can have things to say now.
Now we're gonna come up on a section of the game where the density in skips definitely increases drastically. A lot of precision skips coming up here. Did Fullest opt to get VC3?
I don't believe he had. I don't think he even checked, to be honest. I can't remember.
He's probably just playing it safe.
Yeah. I mean, which I don't blame him. I mean, it is a very tough clip.
Yep.
Oh, okay, Myth. I have done that. I don't know the feeling of A ending PBs, I'm sorry.
So here, normally in the run, you would have to run all the way through the tunnels and then run around down to the negotiations sort of pit and then through the tunnels towards the elevator. Here, this clip, we can just line up a skip to essentially just plunge right in front of the elevator. Saves a decent amount of time, but of course, that's only if you get it within a couple tries of the setup. There we go, Fullest gets its second try.
Ooh.
A little bit off on the
on,
but
yeah.
he recovered it.
Use the Swiss Army knife of self-destruct. Can save a lot of different things.
There we go, we're on best soundtrack now.
Analysis. This area is composed of crystallized silicon and carbon. Further,
What's with the corpses?
it is unlikely the Yorha units came this far on their own. Hypothesis. The enemy must have placed them here deliberately.
So we're going to see Fullest setting up to do a dialogue skip on this section. Adam kind of rambles and talks for a while here, and he's got 3 dialogues. Fullest hitting the mansplaining skip first try, so he's going to run back towards the elevator in which he came from, and when he's going to call the elevator down, and then when it gets there, he'll step inside the elevator and step out, triggering a dialogue to just say that you have to go save 9S, and skipping Adam's lengthy intro dialogue.
Shabu had a little bit scary of a Flooded City Part 2 there. Almost got caught in that elevator. The elevator there, because of the loading lag on that elevator, it's possible for the elevator to load around you, like just completely around you. Which if that happens, you are stuck in that elevator with no way to open it, and the only way to get out of that is to self-destruct and aggro the mobs outside of the elevator and just wait for one of them to kill you. Could take 5 seconds, could take a minute. You never know. Oh, it looks like Shabu is opting to go for Pod B here.
Can't blame him, it's a pretty solid strategy here, being this far behind in the run.
Pod B, I'm trying to remember what the catch rate was for it. I believe it was 5%? Something around there. Myth actually did a pretty big size, a pretty decent sized sample of the catch rate on all the different things you can catch here. Pod B was actually a relatively large chance compared to, like, say, a mackerel, which is used for the mackerel percent run. But yeah, Pod B is a great pod that I wish could be consistently used in A ending. It'd be amazing to have that.
I suppose he might know something. Pascal, can you hear me?
I actually haven't done the run enough to actually try and go for Pod B. I don't even know what it does.
Yeah, Pod B is the laser one. So it does less damage single target, but it really helps with mobs.
Okay.
It's extremely good for resistance camp fight, and if you do Mook's room, then it's really good there as well. It's pretty good on Groon. Some of the later waves it can really clear them pretty quick.
You don't say.
Indeed. Apparently it's located in the abandoned factory. I can give you the coordinates if you'd like.
Please.
I was actually planning to go speak with them myself, you know. Maybe we can meet up over there?
Sounds good.
So I'm curious on the timing that we're going to see between these two runners. I'm not too sure. No, Fullest. Okay, no, I was thinking maybe Shabu might still be in Groon by the time Fullest finishes, but it's not quite that big of a gap yet.
It's pretty close.
Even you?
I believe a typical factory for Fullest is around 9 minutes. 8 to 9 minutes, somewhere in that range.
And then 7 to 8 minutes for the rest of the game past that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 8 minutes for the boss rush part would be a great boss rush. Typically, I believe I see Fullest around about 8:30. Yes, Fullest is in a pretty sizable lead. Shabu had a game crash that lost him about 20 minutes, I believe it was.
So why are
Yeah,
you
it
still
sounds
here?
about right for 20 minutes.
He basically lost his entire amusement park segment.
Appreciate it.
So here we've got another dense section of skips that can be done. I imagine Fullest is going to go for Mook's clip here, which will save him 8 minutes instead of having to... Or, whoo, 8 minutes. That'd be a nice one. 8 seconds. Instead of having to clear out all the mooks in the room and wait for the elevator to open, you can clip through the wall and despawn the mooks enough to have the elevator trigger. Unfortunately, you miss out on the EXP by doing that, but if you've done enough grinding in other parts of the levels, like Negotiations Tunnel or Atom Pit SD and Bokushi SD as well, you should get enough for level 20.
Yeah, level 20 with the Mook's room skip is pretty tight. Also, Pascal's just kind of standing there. Yeah, level 20 with the Mook's room skip is pretty tight, unless you go for the roller coaster EXP skip. In which case you would gain about 400 EXP over what you normally would gain in that segment.
And interesting thing about the clip that Fullest just did, that is the 9S room clip. It's essentially the same sort of concept as the Mook's room clip, in which you're trying to avoid out and go far enough away to reset the trigger on the elevator so that you don't have to run through the factory. It saves about a minute and a half in time of running through the factory. And I was going back and we were talking about doing earlier iterations of the skip. And oh man, just looking at version 1 of the skip, it just looks nightmarish for me.
Yeah, version 1 was it was very fun actually. Like once you learned it, it was a lot of fun to do it that way. I considered trying to relearn it. It probably wouldn't take me long, but I considered relearning it for group stage just because entertainment value. We've also had just not on that topic at all. Shabu has also opted to despawn the enemies on Groon. Doesn't change your time most of the time. You don't save time, you don't lose time. It is possible that the game will just decide to freak out and give you a random 4-minute time loss. Very unlikely, but it has happened. So most of the runners opt to not do that skip, both for the EXP and to not risk losing 4 minutes. That's completely out of your control.
Physical defense shield detected. Analysis. Both long and close-range attacks are ineffective.
Oh, now what?
Large energy supply detected.
So you'll see Fullest just waiting out the timer here on Soshi. It's just waiting for the factory power to be turned off. Essentially, you just be down there dodging Soshi's attacks that you can't damage him in this state. But we can go on the bridge and just sort of stick ourselves in an infinite fall and just wait out that timer altogether.
Yes, the damage glitching that we use for combat is roughly 5% or not 5%, 5 times damage. It's just a dash followed by a heavy attack with a short sword in your heavy slot.
It's not too bad once you get the hang of it, and then just mixing in taunting with it in between. Once you get that down, double damage glitch comes pretty easy after that.
No.
Gets a little bit harder if you want to try and add in like pod slow-mo on top of it, because that's another action you're doing with your hand, but it follows a pretty rhythmic pattern, so it's easy to get down. 9S does have a damage glitch. It is slightly different. I don't know if you want to explain that, Marbles, because I don't run A through E, so I don't know how to do it.
Yeah, 9S does have a damage glitch. The only difference is you have to be mid-air when you do it. It's not very fun for your hands. So basically 9S damage glitch is a jump into a dash and then a light attack, since his heavy attack is a what's it called? Hack. So 9S damage glitch is really weird. I think I'm trying to pull up Fullest PB splits. I think his he's actually not super far off his PB. Oh, never mind. He's about a minute. Okay, I thought it was closer than that, to be honest. Yeah, 9S has a very odd damage glitch. It's not fun for your hands. It's not fun for your hands. And then for E ending, you go from doing about an hour and a half of combat with 2B into like another like hour 45 minutes. Or well, I guess it's about an hour and a half to hour 45 minutes of combat with almost exclusively 9S. It's not fun.
Let's move.
Or I'm sorry, what am I talking about? It's 2.5 hours.
Try contacting the bunker via laser relay system.
Affirmative.
So Fullest now coming up on the final, boss rush of the game. Bunch of bosses compressed right here into the end. So just a lot of solid combat here. Not really many like soft lock, out of bounds skips. Just combat time loss is the only way you can really lose time here. And one of the cores falling on a fence.
Don't remind me.
I'm glad it hasn't happened to me yet, but I have crashed out multiple times on core 2. So that's my core on the fence thing.
Core 2 robbed me of my sub 126.
So now we're going to see Fullest going into Bokushi, which is just a powered up version of Soshi from before, with a lot of different attack patterns. The water around him is charged electrically, so usually you just end up taking a little bit of damage there, and then you're invulnerable to that damage from the water for 10 seconds. And then the fight plays out about the same. You just don't want to break his legs and try and kill him as quick as possible.
This is never going to end.
Hypothesis. The Goliath-class enemy screen has summoned the local machine life
Ooh, instant vacuum.
Destroy the Goliath.
Yeah, so after you take care of the damage threshold and Bokushi transitions to that ball form, he can sometimes choose to just use an attack before doing the vacuum, which will end the fight completely. I don't believe we've figured out exactly why sometimes he gets an attack off and why he doesn't, but it's unfortunate when he does.
They're still coming?
So you're now with Core 2. Combat changes up a little bit. Most of the bosses you don't really have to worry about doing pod slow-mo on, but this one in particular, because it's kind of flying by and you want to damage it as quickly as possible, you will end up pod slow-moing as he flies by you and just damage glitch off as much as you can. Then you wait for the core to fall, hope it doesn't fall on top of the fence, losing you more time, and then you'll be off to Eve after finishing it.
I know Fullest does attempt to do the zero cycle here, so it is also possible that the core never even falls and just dies in midair.
It seems the machines on the network have gone berserk. They've sealed off the entrance to the village and are trying to hold them off, but with these weapons, there's only so much we can do.
Let's take these guys out first.
There we go.
You saved them.
Very nice. Minus the laser.
The machines on the network all went berserk.
And Shabu is closing in on Copied City now.
Over them may have gone mad.
It's Eve.
Let's see how he does on the skip here.
If we destroy this presiding unit, will it stop the rest?
Most likely, yes.
Pod, I need you to locate Eve's current position.
Location has been detected.
Nice.
Placed on map.
Very
We'll
nice.
take care of Eve.
You just worry about keeping the village safe, okay?
Do be careful.
There is a minor dialogue skip that Fullest missed at the end of Core 2. By interacting with 9S, you can cancel the dialogue with Pascal. It does save a couple seconds, solely because by the time you make it to the Eve fight, the trigger will have already loaded in order to start the fight. Whereas if you don't get the dialogue skip, you have to kind of wait around for the dialogue to finish. Eve can choose to go into platform phase. Fullest avoided it. It's solely based off of damage output, and you kind of time. You can kind of time damage or stagger damage if you need to. Fullest actually uses the double damage glitch plus slow-mo, so he kind of just tries to do damage quickly. And that was kind of what he did there as well. For the phase 2 skip, when he starts healing up, if you deal enough damage that he's not full health at the point in the dialogue when 2B says on it, then the phase will skip completely and transition immediately to phase 3.
It's a pretty decent phase 3 on Eve. now he's going into phase 4, which is just mobile attacks. You can't use your pod lasers. You can pretty much just pod fire, and that's about it. So you just want to get as close to Eve as possible and heal through the damage he does at you. Keep him taunted and keep buffed up, and get below him while you finish him off so that he drops right on top and the cutscene triggers immediately. Fortunately, it looks like he's running away from Fullest pretty far now.
Yeah.
FFCS destroyed. Rain.
Pretty solid time.
Be a sub 129.
This time will be less than a minute behind his PB, which is very solid. Being able to consistently keep times like that, especially in a race setting, is very good. Running in a race setting in general is a very different experience.
Alrighty, and I guess I will switch the audio over to Shabu.
Shabu is entering the factory sequences, or about to be on his way to factory. Again, really dense on skips here. Shabu has seemed pretty good at getting the factory skip. A lot of the issues that I've noticed have been the same issues almost everybody has. Accidentally clipping back in bounds when you're on that scaffolding. It's a very, very narrow window. Yeah, we've got Fullest here.
Hello, Fullest.
Hi.
Congratulations on the win.
Thank you.
Pretty good time.
It is really unfortunate for Shabu for his game to crash like that.
Very.
Yeah.
If he finishes, and I hope he will, he's definitely got my respect. I would have forfeited if I were in his shoes.
Yeah, it's tough to continue, especially if you lose like 15 to 20 minutes. It's a pretty big time loss. He was on his way to Pascal's village, I believe, when it crashed after Beavor. So he had to go all the way back to the end of the desert.
That's like right before you save, too.
Yeah.
That's so unfortunate. Damn. Best of luck to him finishing the rest.
Yeah, I'm kind of mad you didn't go for a roller coaster, but you know, I'll deal with it.
At the time, so here's the thing. I got really freaked out on the way out of Adam Pit because I took a glance back over at the stream, and I saw Shabu coming into the Adam Pit. But since it's that same tunnel, I thought he was just finished. He was already finished with Adam 1 already, and I was only just finishing Adam Pit. So I was freaking out.
What actually happened was he missed the tunnel trigger, and so he actually had to escape Adam Pit.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty close up till housing. It wasn't very far different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Especially with punches. Feels bad, man.
Oh yeah, punches.
You did both get punches, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
We both got punches?
Yeah, you both got punches.
Damn. Dang.
Oh,
Shabu's
no.
prologue is insane.
Oh no. Shabu just voided out.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh no. So voiding out here, the problem with this is it moves the mook back to the starting place. So you have to wait for the priest to go. There we
Is
go.
Oh man.
Stuck?
You got it.
He was a little stuck, but now he's going back to get the trigger.
Yeah, you have to wait for the priest to walk all the way back to the elevator again.
Feel really bad for him too because we always meme about him soft locking in the race, and he's done it now twice.
Well,
If you would consider that a close one,
that was
not like full soft
yeah.
locks, but close.
In the same run too. Crazy.
And then just the crash thrown on top of it is so unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a lot to deal with.
This all seems pretty shady, if you ask me.
So why are you still here?
Well, I brought you this far, didn't I? It's my duty to see this through to the end.
So probably be about a 144, 145.
It'll probably be closer to 150.
Yeah, I suppose you're
This
right.
factory's gonna take a good 8 minutes, 8 to 9 minutes. And then the end split will probably take about 9 minutes as well.
Hello.
Considering everything that happened in that run though, like a 150 is pretty good.
Peace treaty?
Imagine the hype if Shabu crashed out. He's 20 minutes behind now. And then he comes back, unveils Grun Skip, wins the race outright.
Oh
The
man,
most insane thing.
it would definitely be crazy.
2 feet to bunker. We've passed bunker with hostile machines at the abandoned factory. We need an immediate escape route.
Communications are currently unstable.
Move a distress signal.
2B. The door on the other side of the room just opened. Let's check it out.
Oh, is the bounty actually that high now? I didn't realize it had gotten even higher.
It was at least 1.3 on the first stream that me and Henny did commentary for. But we're forgetting the most important part of the bounty, is the curry pizza from Tech. Shabu's going for the V1 clip for 9S room.
This is that's like kind of 1.5. Yeah,
I
there's
respect it. He's still trying to
there's a
swag
lot.
out to the end.
yeah, there's a lot of different clips there. You can pretty much just push buttons and you'll probably clip out there. I'm actually surprised that didn't get the trigger there. Oh
Yep.
no.
That's a really steep angle.
Oh no. You need to get the trigger.
There we go, he knows.
Good. Good.
He figured it out.
Yeah, so falling there isn't the end of the world. It turns into the version 1 factory skip, which we just fell into that silo, went out the side door, get the trigger, and then continue as normal. That was the original iteration of the skip, and then Marky found a way to do the second part of it as well. Looks like Shabu is going to... Oh boy.
He's playing a risky game with those crushers.
Looks like he's just gonna opt for the Oh no!
Oh my
Ooh.
goodness.
Ooh. Yeah, so here again, the slow-mo. It slows down even the crushers, since it slows everything down except for you. It does make it a little safer, but the problem with that second set is really if you get one of those suicide bombers, they can really throw a wrench in it. They do a lot of damage, and they do a pretty sizable knockback. They can potentially just knock you completely back into one of the crushers and die from it. Which at this point in a normal run where most of the runners aren't taking safety saves. A death there would put you a good ways back.
It's pretty much run over if you die at this point.
Yeah,
If you're
you
anywhere
back.
close to PB and you're going for that, then it's run over.
Yeah.
So just a heads up, I guess, while we're waiting for Soshi to start. Again, there's one more race later today, and since we've been doing all of our runs today on Speed Gaming 3, the last one is on Speed Gaming 1. It's an hour from now. So if you guys want to watch another race, be sure to go over to Speed Gaming. Just Twitch Speed Gaming.
That Goliath we just encountered.
And that's where that run will
I've
be.
been keeping an eye on you. I'm gonna shut off power to the factory now.
I'm actually interested to see.
Factory is at 80% control.
I actually believe you have a shot in that. I don't think Ice has really been playing that much.
It's a tough call. I've been thinking about it a lot this week, because nobody knows how, if Ice is rusty or if he's been doing runs offline or anything. So it could be, it's a race, anything can happen.
Yep. Yeah, Ice was the longtime world record holder before our current world record holder, Canaris. He had it for probably a good... he had it for a while.
Yeah, I'm probably just going to end up hiding the stream and just trying to PB my 140. That's my goal.
Yep.
If I can PB 140, I'll be perfectly happy with taking an L. Now we're going to see if Shabu goes for Shabu clip again.
Indeed he does.
A little bit more struggles on this run than his first run through. I think he got it second try last time. Although he did void out, so let's see if he does that here.
A little tough to see. Shabu has been having some... Ooh. Ooh, missed the platform. Shabu has been having some OBS and stream issues lately. There we go. Got the angle that time. Looks like Fullest is going to practice roller coaster in the meantime.
Very solid use of time.
No thanks. I'm heading back to the resistance camp.
Oh, Mama Pipes. Mama Pipes is interested.
I see.
Maybe Mama Pipes has the secrets to Grunt Skip hidden.
I'm not receiving.
Come through,
Hey.
crush everyone.
Someone's got to have it somewhere.
Somebody's got the secret formula.
Someone's hiding it.
Why are their numbers increasing like this? Try contacting the bunker via laser relay system.
Affirmative.
Yeah, if she's watching, shout out to Mama Pipes.
Shabu. Ooh. Ooh. It's a little bit scary there. Shabu should have about probably about 6.5, 7 minutes left in his run. That doesn't happen often. Both Shabu and Fullest had instant vacuum on Bokushi this run.
Let's take this bastard down. Right.
They're still coming? What do we do? There's too many.
Chubby, can you hear me? Our village is under...
Pascal? Come in,
Definitely makes it
Pascal.
hard to keep going with commentary when it's watching the same game you already commentated over.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'd be probably saying a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a little weird, especially when I just did the last one too.
Yeah,
oh.
I'm feeling that as well. I at least had a break in between my two commentary slots, but it gets hard to feel not repetitive when you're you're doing multiple commentary runs a day.
The network has gone berserk. They sealed off the entrance to the village and are trying to hold them off, but with these weapons, there's only so much we can do.
I don't even think it was so much that it was multiples in a day, just that they were literally right after each other.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were probably here for at least part of the first one too.
I'm really sad that I missed the race between CC and Questica.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was 3 a.m. for me. I needed to sleep.
Shabu had kind of a close call with that core. It kind of bounced off the fence there.
It's Eve. It's gotta be.
If we destroy this
I'm quite interested to see how Questica does over the next couple of weeks, because we agreed to arrange our time a little bit later towards the end of the tournament to grind down our times as much as possible and make a real close race. I think he's ahead of me now with his PB today.
Yeah, I didn't even see the time, honestly. I just know that he PB'd.
147 or 148. Or 130. 137.
Oh, I was about to
My
say.
bad. Yeah,
I was like, wait.
A little bit off.
That's good. Yeah, like right when I tuned in to say good luck this morning on my before I left for work, he was just getting roller coaster skip.
Yeah, that surprised me the most. I woke up and saw that he did that. I was like, oh, what a legend. He laughs pretty hard though, so it's not too surprising.
We'll never get anywhere like this. I'm going to try backing into Eve and shutting you down. Back me up!
Protecting Unit 9S will compact the system.
Being disconnected to a vast network. Every unit cut off from network functionality.
Alright, final stretch. We're in Eve Phase 3. Hopefully no deaths here, as we're already kind of pushing over our time limit.
I'm super proud though that he's actually going to finish this run.
Agreed. I probably, at that amount of time loss, I would have dropped.
Yeah.
Especially
losing
after
20 minutes. Oof. You know, being such a long, I mean, it's not super long, but being an hour and a half to 2 hour long run, doing multiple ones in the row really kind of can wear on your brain, as well as your hands. So being able to finish 2 runs in a row is not an easy feat.
So sadly, since we are pushing over our time limit, we won't be able to do any post-game interview. We gotta give up the channel for the Dragon Ball showcase. You guys are gonna stick around for that. So I guess we might as well say our thanks now.
We can do that now.
Thank you, Marbles, for doing commentary today, as well as helping organize all this tournament stuff.
Most of it was Kanar's.
That's true. And as well, thank you to the Speed Gaming crew, who's been nothing but helpful and nice in hosting this tournament. Alrighty.
Yep. And
so I guess we'll leave it off there. Sorry, Shabu can't do the post.
Nope, that is
Congrats
totally
on the run.
Yep.
Yeah,
we're just kind of a little over. Yeah.
Sorry for jinxing you again.
Props for finishing it out though.
Yep. All right. See you guys later.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
Alrighty, and we're gonna be on Speed Gaming main channel in an hour's time, or 55 minutes for the last race of the day. If you guys are interested in watching that. Alrighty.
Yep.
So I guess we'll leave it off there. Sorry, Shabu, can't do the
Alrighty.
post. Have a good one, everybody. Congrats on the run.
Yep.
Congrats for
We're just kind of a little over. Yeah.
Sorry for jinxing you again.
Props for finishing it out though. All right. Okay.
Yes.